Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Hoot. We are in chapter 11. A couple big things have happened. First of all, Mullet Fingers is very sick, fell when he was trying to feed the owls, which Roy has now seen, and his sleeve pulled off, which Officer Delinko found and now has some evidence against whoever it is. And Curly is waiting and now spending overnights at the camp with his gun. Not the greatest. Just as Curly was polishing off his first tuna sandwich, a commercial for Mother Paula's All-American Pancake House came on TV. There, dressed up as kindly old Mother Paula herself, was none other than Kimberly Lou Dixon, the former Miss America runner-up. She was flipping flapjacks over a hot griddle and singing some sort of goofy song. Although the makeup artist had done a darn good job, Curly could still tell that the old lady in the commercial was actually a much younger woman, and that she was pretty. Remembering what Chuck Muckle had told him about Kimberly Lou Dixon's new movie deal, Curly tried to picture her as queen of the mutant grasshoppers. Undoubtedly, the special effects department would give her 6 green legs and a pair of antennae, which Curly found intriguing to contemplate. He wondered if he would be introduced personally to Kimberly Lou Dixon when she came to Coconut Cove to attend the groundbreaking ceremony for the new pancake house. The possibility wasn't so far-fetched, him being the supervising engineer of the project, top guy in charge. Curly had never met a movie star or a television actress or a Miss America or a Miss anything. Was it okay to ask for an autograph, he wondered? Would she mind posing with him for a picture? And would she speak to him in her phony Mother Paula's voice or his Kimberly Lou Dixon? These were the questions knocking around inside Curly's head as the image on the TV screen dissolved to an electric fuzz before his disbelieving eyes. Heatedly, he banged a mayonnaise-smeared fist on the side of the TV console, to no avail. The cable had gone out in the middle of a Mother Paula's commercial. Not a good omen, Curly thought sourly. He'd used many bad words to curse his rotten luck. It had been years since he had gone a whole night without TV, and he wasn't sure how to amuse himself. There was no radio in the trailer, and the only reading material was a construction industry journal with boring articles about hurricane-resistant roof sheathing and anti-termite treatments for plywood. Curly considered a quick trip to the mini-mart to rent some videos, but that would require crossing the property to reach his truck. With dusk approaching, he couldn't get up the nerve to venture outside, not with those deadly cottonmouths skulking around. He hunched the pillow under his head and tilted his chair back against the thin-paneled wall. Alone in silence, he wondered if it was possible for a snake to worm its way into the trailer. He remembered hearing a story about a boa constrictor that had crawled through the plumbing and popped out of a bathroom drain in a New York City apartment. Imagining that scene, Curly felt his stomach knot. He got up and padded cautiously to the entrance of the trailer's small bathroom. Placing one ear to the door, he listened. Was it his imagination, or did he hear a rustle on the other side? Curly drew the gun from his belt and cocked the trigger. Yes, he was certain something was moving. The instant Curly kicked open the door, he realized there was no poisonous snake in the bathroom, and no cause for mortal alarm. Unfortunately, the message didn't travel fast enough from his brain to his trigger finger. The boom fired from the gun startled Curly almost as badly as it startled the field mouse that was sitting on the tile floor minding its own business. As the bullet whizzed over its tiny little whiskered head, it shattered the toilet seat. The mouse took off, a squeaking gray blur that scooted out of the doorway between Curly's feet. Hand trembling, Curly lowered the pistol and stared ruefully at what he had done. He had accidentally shot the commode. It was going to be a long weekend. Mr. Everhart was in the den, reading at his desk, when Mrs. Everhart came to the door with a worried expression. That policeman's here, she said. What policeman? The one who brought Roy home the other night. You better come talk to him. Officer Delinko stood in the living room, holding his hat in his hands. Nice to see you again, he said to Roy's father. Is something wrong? It's about Roy, Mrs. Everhart cut in. Possibly, said Officer Delinko. I'm not certain. Let's all sit down, suggested Mr. Everhart. He was trained to remain calm while sorting through the loose snippets of information. Tell us what happened, he said. Where is Roy? Is he home? The policeman inquired. No, he went to a friend's house to work on a science project, Mrs. Everhart said. The reason I ask, Officer Delinko said, is that I spotted a couple of kids on East Oriole a little bit ago. One of them looked sort of like your son. The weird thing was, first he waved at the police car, and then all of a sudden he ran away. Mr. Everhart frowned. Ran away? That doesn't sound like Roy. Certainly not, Mrs. Everhart agreed. Why would he do that? The kid left a bike lying in the street. Well, it's not Roy's bike. Roy's bike has a flat, Roy's mother announced. Yes, I remember, said the policeman. We had to order a new tire, Mr. Everhart added. Officer Delinko nodded patiently. I know it's not Roy's bicycle. This one was stolen from Trace Middle School earlier this afternoon, shortly after classes left out. Are you sure? Mr. Hubbard asked. Yes, sir. I found out when I radioed in the serial number. The room fell silent. Roy's mother looked gravely at Roy's father, and then fixed her gaze upon the policeman. My son is no thief, she said firmly. I'm not making any accusations, said Officer Delinko. The boy who was running away looked like Roy, but I can't say for sure. I'm only checking with you folks because you're his parents, and this is part of my job. The policeman turned to Roy's father for support. Being in law enforcement, Mr. Eberhard, I'm sure you understand. I do, Roy's father mumbled distractedly. How many kids did you see on the road? At least 2, possibly 3. And they all took off? Yes, sir. Officer Delinko was trying to be as professional as possible. Maybe someday he would apply to be an FBI agent, and Mr. Eberhard could put in a good word for him. And how many bicycles? Mr. Eberhard was asking. Just one. It's in the car if you'd like to take a look. Roy's parents followed the policeman out of the driveway where he opened the Crown Victoria's trunk. See? Officer Delinko motioned towards the stolen bicycle, which was Beach Blue Cruiser model. I don't recognize it, said Mr. Eberhard. How about you, Lizzie? Roy's mother swallowed hard. It looked like the same bike ridden by Roy's new friend, Beatrice, when she accompanied him home from school. Before Mrs. Eberhard could collect her thoughts, Officer Delinko said, Oh, I almost forgot. How about this? He reached into a pocket and he took out what appeared to be a torn shirt sleeve. You found that with the bicycle? Mr. Eberhard asked. Nearby, Officer Delinko was fudging a little bit. The construction site was actually several blocks from where he spotted the kids. Does it look familiar? He asked the Eberhards, holding up the ragged strip of fabric. Not to me, Roy's father replied. Lizzie? Mrs. Eberhard appeared relieved. Well, it's definitely not Roy's, she informed Officer Delinko. He doesn't own any green clothes. What color shirt was the boy wearing when he ran off? Mr. Eberhard asked. I couldn't tell, the patrolman admitted. He was too far away. They heard the phone ring, and Roy's mother hurried inside to answer it. Officer Delinko leaned closer to Roy's father and said, I apologize for bothering you folks with this. Like you were saying, it's all part of the job. Mr. Eberhard remained polite, even though he knew the policeman wasn't telling him everything about the green rag. Speaking of jobs, Officer Delinko said, you remember the other night when I brought Roy home with his flat tire? Of course. In all that nasty weather? Yes, I remember, said Mr. Eberhard impatiently. Did he happen to mention anything about you writing up a letter for me? What kind of letter? To our police chief, Officer Delinko said. No biggie, just a note for the permanent file saying you folks appreciated me helping out your boy, something along those lines. And this note should be sent to your chief? Or to the captain. I mean, even my sergeant would be okay. Roy didn't ask you? Not that I recall, said Mr. Eberhard. Well, you know how kids are. He probably forgot. What's your sergeant's name? I'll see what I can do. Roy's father made no effort to conceal his lack of enthusiasm. He was running out of tolerance for the pushy young cop. Thanks a million, Officer Delinko said, pumping Mr. Eberhard's hand. Every little bit helps when you're trying to get ahead. And something like this, coming from a federal agent such as yourself. But he didn't give the chance to give Sergeant's name to Mr. Eberhard, because at that very moment, Mrs. Eberhard burst through the front door, carrying a purse in one hand and a jingled set of car keys in the other. Lizzie, what's the matter? Mr. Eberhard called out. Who's that on the phone? It's the emergency room, she cried breathlessly. Roy's been hurt. We're going to stop there.